Well, hello everyone. For this week, I have a couple of aha moments here that I like to share and talk about. And really, again, I think it's all connected with parenting and all that's available to young children, the youth, teenagers, Generation Z. And the first thing that caught my attention was the article on a parent struggle. Um, the first thing I noticed is that what really got my attention here, very interesting, was how this parent, this father, mentioned how the iPad is a magic electronic babysitter. And the truth is, we cannot be blaming anyone about this, about his comment. It's really no surprising for me to, I'm sorry, to hear this, to read this, because for many parents, including my brother, these devices, iPads, tablets, you name it, they are quite magical because children can learn a lot from educational programs they offer, online programs, just strictly based on education. Uh, but the thing is what I question here is that he acknowledges that is acting like a magical babysitter. And I realized that he's saying this because while he's doing what he wants to do, maybe he's on his iPhone or on the PC, then the 6 year old is using the iPad. And it's totally understandable. But he was also complaining about how the child has been so insisting and spending too much time of it. And this is where Dr. Ozit some time ago mentioned about talks about access and excess, and I feel that this is where this parent is probably not doing his job completely because he mentions his older kids that they're mostly fine with it, but his problem is the young kid. Well, if we focus on psychology, on the things I know, generally speaking, um, it seems to me that, and this is even an example in my family with the youngest brother, the youngest person. It seems like there's a sort of not a tradition, but like a trend, um, that usually the youngest kids are the ones who either receive the most or they get to do things more their way, if you know what I mean. Like it's like the older people, the older sons, are the ones who get more of the punishment, and the youngest kids don't. And this seems to be something like like a given, a constant. So the thing I want to say is that I want to ask, and I would like, and it would be nice to ask this parent from the article is, well, at what time should we really expose young children, very young children, to applications, to these gadgets, to these devices? What is the appropriate age? Uh, that's my real conflict here, because he probably has not understood that, or he probably doesn't know, because I think his modeling down, meaning he gave his older kids iPads, and the young kid who's 6 years old observed this, so he has to be given one. And so, in other words, this father has actually conditioned this kid to have an iPad, and I think he somewhere along the line he lost track of the control over it, and now he's facing this issue with his child being constantly asking for it, even though he said that he had his rules during the weekdays. But I feel that this kid will probably lose social skills given what he mentioned. And recalling what he mentioned was that the iPad is an electronic babysitter. So where is he going to find time for family time, for family quality time, and even for teachable moments. These points, these previous points that Dr. also talked about in previous chapters. So he acknowledges moderation, but is he actually consistent? I mean, what about the rewards and the punishments? So I get the impression that this 6 year old is not being punished. He's actually being rewarded more. And his reward has to do because he's actually online on the iPad, and he's not into mindless games. So that's positive, but the negative is that he is practically, this is an addiction. And his moderation is not being set because it was pretty obvious or pretty clear that there was not much of control over him, and so he's, in a way, he's giving in. But we cannot blame him completely. I don't think any of us can, because of the trends in technology and the new the social norms. Um, which makes me move to my second on page 249, I believe. Dr. Ozit mentions about, yes, he mentioned on page 249, instead, our goal should be to integrate elements of both traditional and contemporary culture to the best of our ability. And I think he's very right. Uh, I still think that this is ideal. This is ideal, and here's why. I studied marketing when I was at U of L, and what I know is that marketing has continued ever since, and now with the digital era, to influence pop culture. And we can argue that how good is pop culture, and if it's bad or not. And in the end, I don't think we can really reach a conclusion whether it's extremely good or extremely bad. It's really something in the middle, and it's also something individual. Um, but what I do know is that indeed it is unavoidable. We can't help it. Um, when it's bad, well, I can give you an example. I know a person who's 22, 23 years old, and she is immersed into pop culture. She knows everything about Spanish reggaeton, and she has no clue about who Mozart is. She has no clue about Beethoven. And one time I asked her about it, and she says, "Who is that?" And I told her, "Well, these are old music composers, classical music." And the first thing she said was like, "Oh, this is so boring." And I'm like, "Well, do you watch any like the old films and stuff?" And she said, "No, no, no. I only watch the new stuff." So this is an example, I think, how marketing is affecting pop culture. Of course, this is not for everyone. We cannot put everyone or put all the eggs in one basket. But the thing is that we can't avoid this change. And his point about traditional and contemporary culture uh, is ideal. Margaret's example is ideal, and I think the good thing about it is that with the information we have from the digital era, um, we have everything available. I think the problem is that going back to marketing is that and going back to my nieces, all they know is again Spanish reggaeton and maybe Beyonce and stuff like that. But they are clueless about even music from the 80s, even Spanish and English music from the 80s. They're clueless. So why? Because if you watch, there's a Spanish channel, HTV, it's sort of the equivalent of MTV. What they're showing is ladies dancing in their bikini with this hip hop Spanish style. This is very often they're known singers. I literally just moments ago realized there was a hip hop Spanish hip hop singer called Bad Bunny, and but my nieces knew about them. So this is part of the new pop culture. This is part of the new social norms, and marketing is a big factor behind it because this is part of social pressure. And this is where we have to be careful in the future. Uh, I think it would be better if we can integrate what Dr. Austin says on page 249, but we have to keep in mind how much uh, marketing is affecting our youth. And I'm not talking about music and movies. I'm also talking about all these devices that are available to all of us. But the future has also positive things, and I think it's that we are not limited. And because we're not limited, we will continue to be immersed in this culture. And because of that, we have the options to choose. And here's where parents can sort of keep themselves um, keeping the old values and trying to pass them on to their children, but monitoring it all the time. Um, I think in the end, another positive thing is that um, they will always have the information available to them, and it's going to keep happening. But I think that both parents, I want to wrap it up with saying that both parents and children's, uh, myself and all of us in the society worldwide, um, we are not only immersed, but we also, it's like we want to be amused by all these things we have. And in the end, it's about finding the balance. And at least I can say that I'm into both traditional and contemporary, um, but it has to do with how, from this moment, parents are molding their children um, into what's good and what's not good. So that's my second aha, and thank you so much.